So for the next part, we've got to mount this transformer, okay, the output transformer, to the other PCB board using some cable ties. On my one, it depends on which transformer you have, how it will orientate into the board. Now you need to be very careful with transformers. You don't want to pull on these wires because you can damage them. Okay, so I'm just gonna thread those through the back like so. It should hold the board vertical, and then these screw points should be on the side. What's going to happen is that we're going to get a cable tie to go through here and attach to this part, and then a cable tie to attach to this part there and there. So cable tie through, all right, to there and around and through to there. And then that's going to hold that in place like that. It's trickier than you think. So make sure you hold that in place as you start to tighten it. All right, so I'm holding that cable tie in place. There's just a bit of slack there now, and I'm going to tighten it nice and easy. So it's not going to go anywhere. There's a bit of a loop left, but it's pretty snug, okay? It's not going anywhere. It's actually quite tight in there. Then I'm going to carefully lift these leads. So once again, just be careful of your leads. You don't want to damage these transformer leads. If they get pulled on, they will become damaged. Now this one, I think it's going to go over those leads just because there's no other way to really do it and secure it. Pretty snug in there now. Then we can just trim those. Now it says next to shorten each of these wires to about 7 centimeters. So I'm just going to get a tape and measure that. I'm Australian. We use the metric system. Sorry guys, that's just what it is. So need to be trimmed to about there. Alrighty, tiny bit more, a couple of millimeters extra won't hurt. There we go. And our transformer is prepared there. Then it says to strip about 8 millimeters from each wire and then tin the bare ends. All right, so tinning your leads is just putting some solder on them. I have 2 types of cable strippers. I have these ones, the auto strippers, which are great for certain things. And then I have these front-facing strippers, which are better for kind of more gentle front-facing things. Now, I could use the auto strippers on this, okay, but potentially what happens is it pulls when it strips the cable, it'll pull the cable out. And what that means is that it could actually damage, like we said before, it could actually damage the leads by pulling on them. So what I'm gonna do is just be careful and just do a gentle strip of each. And then if you have a look at this actual stripper, it has millimeters and inches. Okay, on the side. These are great, these cable strippers. Okay, these front-facing ones, they can be really useful. So what I can actually do is go, all right, that's about 8 millimeters there, and strip that. Nice and easy. Okay, and then I'm gonna tin that. So once again, line it up to where it says about 8 millimeters, strip, okay. Those nice and neatly stripped, and now we just got to tin those. So to tin them, really easy. We just need to put some solder on them. Usually what you'll do is wind them and then put some solder on them to tin them. There we have it. Once you've finished installing the transformer to the transformer board and building your main PCB board, it is now time to do probably one of the more tricky, or at least a little bit nerve-wracking parts of this build, and that's installing the capsule to the head basket. Now you need to be very careful with the capsules. The diaphragms are quite delicate. If they come into contact with anything magnetic or something pokes them, they'll be damaged, and that will ruin your microphone. So just be very careful when handling the capsule. There's a special saddle that comes with this capsule, and that will mount to that. The microphone body comes with its own saddle. We'll be removing that. What I'm going to do first is just unscrew this chassis. And as I do that, there's going to be some screws that will come out. They're to mount the PCB into the chassis here and to mount different things to the head basket and stuff. So we'll put them aside somewhere safe, okay, so we don't lose them. And then what you should see is there are 3 wires, red, black, and white. They're your XLR connections. We'll get to them in a bit later. And then on the inside here, we have these head basket screws, which I'm going to undo to take the chassis away from the head basket, and we can get to that mount there for the capsule. So let's unscrew those. And as we take that away, now we have our microphone chassis with the saddle and our empty head basket, which I'm going to put off to the side as well. So now what we need to do, there's this screw here. We're going to undo that, and then we're going to use that screw to mount this new bigger saddle over here. Then I'm going to take this new saddle. Now it's got a couple of little screws in there. I'm going to make sure they are safe here as well. Mount that saddle on. Okay. And there's these little grooves, if you can see them. Be careful when you mount this. There's these little slotted groove bits where they should line up. Make sure they're lined up so it lines straight, and you don't want to break it, okay? And don't over tighten it either, because you could snap it. But you want to make sure that screw there is flush and not hanging out, so the capsule can sit flush in there. Now, in the instructions, it's recommended that you label the rear and the front wires, and it says to do that after you've installed the capsule. Now, I'm going to do it now. I'm going to label them now because I don't want to be trying to write on this while I'm got the capsule installed. Just got my Sharpie, okay, and I'm just going to write R and F for rear and front. Rear and front. I know my writing's pretty messy, but whatever. I know what it means. What you have on the front and rear terminals here, they are going to be your front and rear diaphragms. And then on the side, you've got this blue wire. That's the backplate wire. Show you under here. That blue wire, which is attached to the backplate, okay, is the backplate one. And then the other 2 are your diaphragm wires. Oh, this is the nerve-wracking part. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to get my screws ready, these 2 screws. I've got the 2 screws that came with the super saddle, and the 2 screws are going to go into the outer parts of the super saddle, apparently. These 2 outer holes. There's 4 holes, but you use the 2 outer ones. Okay? So sweaty. Here we go. Moment of truth, guys. So I'm going to open up this. I'm going to be very careful while I'm doing all of this, because we don't want to damage capsule. So tape's off. Now I can safely take this off. Oh, these wires seem to be a bit stuck in here. I'm just going to gently pull them away. I don't want to touch the diaphragm at all. When you hold this, you need to hold it from the sides. Okay, from here. You pick it up from the sides, never touch the diaphragm. I'm already getting sweaty. I'm just going to try and look for the screw points. Now I can see there's some screw points on each of the sides, here and here. I'm just going to check how that should orientate. Just going to see how that's going to fit. That doesn't seem like it's going to fit like that. I'm just going to try and show that. You can see these screw holes on the side, okay? I'm being very careful not to touch the diaphragm. Those screw holes are what are going to mount to the saddle. So then I'm going to be picking this up. Holy shit. I can already see that's not going to fit. 100% that wire is wired to the wrong spot. But my backplate wire is not where it should be. I'm going to say. I'm going to get a bit tricky with this and put that backplate wire where it should be. It should be up here. I've got a feeling. I don't know if you guys can see my hand shaking here, but I am shitting my pants. So that one Okay, so that was a bit of a stitch up, but that's okay. Sometimes we have to be clever about what we're doing and careful. So my backplate wire was not where it should be. Now this one should be good. Now I've got it in the cradle there. This is pretty fucking tenuous. Here we go, I got it. I'm gonna lightly screw that one in, and then now it should all line up in the center. So before it wasn't lining up in the center of this cradle at all, because the back plate terminal wire was in the wrong spot. So just be careful of that if you have that problem. Very confusing for a second there. Just holding this carefully, not touching the diaphragms. It should go in kind of easy now, hopefully. There you go, I can feel it grabbing. Capsule. And it is still a bit loose, so I'm just gonna adjust these. Whew, you can see we have our capsule wires in, okay, and our backplate wires there. Now it says to put this wire through here, through the back, like this, and then the other two wires, threading these wires through. I'm just being careful once again not to touch the backplate. It's actually quite tricky. My hands are now quite shaky after that ordeal. That's the rear backplate wire, and this one's going to be the front. What I know is that part there, if you see this little part of the thing, that's the front. So this diaphragm that's facing that side will be your front one, okay? So the other one will be the rear, and that will be the front. Okay, cool. Now we can get to the safe part by installing our head basket. This will protect it, so gently make sure you put it in safely. And then we're going to put those two screws back in. Whew, all right. Success, we have our capsule mounted in. Jesus, so sweaty. My hands are sweating and shaky. God, that's like always the most challenging part of doing these microphones. Don't worry, if you're feeling a bit shaky and sweaty after doing that, you're not the only one. So anyway, so the next step is we need to mount the audio circuit board to the mic body. Okay, so we're going to do that right now. And we want to go to our packet of screws that we had earlier and get a couple of those. And what we're going to do, we're going to mount it so the RF side, that side there, is on that way. And then we mount the board like this. So the rear and front wires are going to be on the other way, and then it will look like that. So on the back, we've got these wires coming through, and XLR wires there. So we've mounted that. Then we need to locate the solder pad labeled RD, rear diaphragm. All right there. We've got our rear wire, and our rear wire is going to go into that one, and our front diaphragm is going to go that one. And what you can actually do, just bend it a little bit so it stays in place, and solder like that. Hold that down, some blue tack there, like this. Now we've got our wire sitting nice and neat in the spot there where we need it. We can solder that nice and neatly without too much drama. Tape and blue tack and all that sort of stuff is your friend. It can be really, really helpful to have some blue tack around just to keep the microphone from rolling. It won't move now, it'll stay nice and still. That other piece is just gonna hold that wire there for me while I get this ready. So just be careful of these wires, okay? We're soldering it from the rear because if you try to solder it from the other side, you would damage the components that are there. I don't want to bump this wire either. Okay, I'm just gonna make sure it's out of the way. Solder on my tip, like we've been doing. There we go. Nice and easy. We're gonna do the same front diaphragm wire. Done. So those wires are neatly soldered in. Now what it says here we next need to do is the blue backplate wire, trim it, and then strip it and have it so it'll sit in this junction here. So I'm gonna trim a little bit off it. Let's start with maybe this much. Just see. Probably a little bit more actually, another centimeter. So, and then, so I'm gonna strip it with my wire strippers. Once again, these front facing wire strippers come in very handy. It says strip 5mm, so let's do that. There we go. Now we've got a bare end here, so we're gonna tin that first. Gonna put some solder on here. Then we're gonna hook it into these components and solder them all together. So that's hooked in there, right there. Alrighty. Okay, and then it just says to clean the joint with some isopropyl. Looks pretty good to me. That's a very tricky kind of join there. It's basically all of those little wires and connectors are joined now with the lump of solder. So the next thing we have to do is flip the board over, and we need to solder each of these 3 XLR wires to their corresponding holes. Now, what you need to do is actually look at where they're lining up. So we've got, if we look down the hole there, we can see black, red, white. So black, if I look this way, black is 1, 2 is red, 3 is white, which is what it should be. Okay, which is great. And what we're gonna do is leave them semi-twisted, but then put them into their spots where they belong on the board. You can get something just to prop up that cable. All right, I've got the black one, XLR1, going in there. Then the red wire will go to XLR2 and the white wire will go to XLR3. Okay, and what you can see I'm doing is putting these wires in and then soldering from the front of the board. You want to make sure you do this correctly. Just getting the blue tack to kind of hold that in place. And then what I'm doing is turning the board in a way so I can get my iron in safely without touching any of these components. In there, my iron can sit here safely. I can solder that wire. There we go. So that's the XLR wires done. And then now all we need to do is the transformer. So now we need to get a couple more of those screws, screw this in. I could mount it lower, but then I'm not gonna get to these wires very easily. Things are gonna get messy. I'm gonna mount it there. All right. Now, depending on the transformer you have, depends on which wire goes where. Okay, so be very careful and check your manual for which wires are gonna go where. Now, my pins are gonna go, red is 1, black is 2, pink is TS1, and gray is TS2. And then all we need to do now is snip all those longer bits off so the wires don't come into contact with anything else. And then we have our transformer wired in, our XLR cables wired in, and all of the wiring for the capsule. Very cool. So what we need to do now is very carefully screw on our chassis and make sure that nothing comes into contact with the metal housing of the chassis, and then plug it in and test it. All right, so the front is this side. Make sure that nothing comes into contact with the basket there. These wires should be okay, hopefully. Nothing's getting pinched or anything as we're putting the chassis together. And then we just screw on the base there. And we're good to go. Alrighty, and now we have a finished Micparts microphone covered in sweaty hands. My hands are so sweaty, it's ridiculous. So there we go. Micparts T67 should be all finished. We'll do a quick test. So moment of truth, here we go. I've just got my microphone in front of me now. This is the SM7B 1222. This is the T67. It sounds incredible. What an awesome microphone. 1, 2. All right. What happens if I get nice and close? I can hear it starting to saturate actually and break up. To me already it sounds warm. I feel like it almost sounds to me like this has a compressor on it already. Maybe it's the transformer part of the circuit. This sounds amazing. I'm really, really digging the sound of this microphone. This over here, okay, this is an SM7B. I'm running this through a compressor, okay? So that's what it sounds like with a compressor, a limiter on it. And this is the T67
with no compression. There's no compression on this at all, but it kind of feels like there is. It's very, very interesting. So success so far. Another excellent product from Micparts.com. Thanks again to Matt McGlynn for sending me this microphone to build. I really appreciate it. Hopefully this video helps you through the build process of your own T67. Remember, if you need any help online, you can reach out to Matt. You can also reach out to myself if you want to message me in the comment sections down below as well. If you like this video, please click like down below. Don't forget to subscribe as well. I'm Mitch from the DIYRecordingstudio.com, and I'll catch you soon.